In the dazzling world of television, few stars shine as brightly as Linda Evans, the unforgettable face of Crystal Carrington in the iconic series Dynasty. But what if I told you that behind the glamorous facade lay a life filled with unexpected twists, tumultuous relationships, and remarkable resilience? Join me as we unravel the captivating story of Linda Evans, a tale that goes beyond fame and dives deep into the trials and triumphs that shaped her legendary career. Are you ready for a journey that reveals the woman behind the character? Let's dive in. Linda Evans was born on November 18, 1942, in Hartford, Connecticut, into a family that pulsated with creativity and the arts. Her mother was a dancer, moving gracefully across stages with a passion that seemed to ripple through the air, while her father was a singer, his voice carrying melodies that filled their home with warmth and inspiration. Together, they created an environment where artistic expression wasn't just encouraged, it was a way of life. Though neither of them could have predicted the path their daughter would take, they unwittingly planted the seeds of performance in her soul, seeds that would one day blossom into a career that would captivate millions. When Linda was still a young girl, her family made the life-changing decision to move to North Hollywood, California. It was a place buzzing with the energy of the entertainment industry, a land of dreams where the silver screen and the small screen alike held promises of fame and fortune. For Linda, this move marked the beginning of her artistic journey, though it wasn't without its struggles. As a child, she was painfully shy, often retreating into herself when faced with the world's expectations. Her insecurities gnawed at her, making her feel small in a place that seemed to demand boldness and confidence. Yet, within the realm of performing, she found a sanctuary. Acting became her voice, a way to express the emotions and thoughts she couldn't always articulate in her everyday life. It was as if stepping into a character allowed her to shed her fears and become someone braver, someone stronger. By the time she was 15, Linda's talent began to catch the attention of those around her. She landed her first gig in a commercial, a small but significant step that lit a spark within her. Standing in front of the camera, she felt a rush of excitement and purpose, a burning ambition that told her this was only the beginning. Though she was still young, still green in the ways of the industry, her natural ability shone through. Directors and producers took notice, seeing in her a potential that went beyond her years. That first commercial wasn't just a job, it was a doorway, one that opened onto a path she would follow for decades to come. But Linda's early life wasn't all smooth sailing. Growing up in the shadow of Hollywood's glitz and glamour came with its own set of challenges. The industry was a double-edged sword, offering opportunities while also piling on pressures that could crush even the strongest spirits. For Linda, the drive to succeed was a constant companion, pushing her forward even as the weight of expectations threatened to hold her back. She watched as others around her chased their dreams, some soaring to great heights while others stumbled and fell. Through it all, she held on to her passion, letting it guide her through the uncertainties of youth. Every experience, whether a triumph or a setback, was a lesson, a piece of the puzzle that would one day form the remarkable woman she was destined to become. Little did she know, the stage was being set for a career that would define her life and leave an indelible mark on television history. Linda Evans's journey to stardom truly took flight when she landed the role of Audra Barkley in the popular Western drama series The Big Valley. This wasn't just another job, it was a golden opportunity, a chance to stand shoulder to shoulder with some of Hollywood's most formidable talents. Starring alongside legends like Barbara Stanwyck, whose commanding presence filled every scene, and Lee Majors, whose charisma lit up the screen, Linda stepped into a world that demanded excellence. As Audra Barkley, she played a spirited young woman, a daughter of a wealthy ranching family navigating the rugged landscapes of the American West. It was a role that required both beauty and depth, and Linda delivered on every front. From the moment The Big Valley premiered, it was clear that Linda was no ordinary actress. Her portrayal of Audra was magnetic, blending grace with a fiery independence that captivated audiences week after week. She didn't just rely on her striking looks, though those certainly didn't hurt. Instead, she brought an emotional richness to the character, revealing layers of strength and vulnerability that made Audra feel real, relatable, and unforgettable. Viewers couldn't get enough, and the show quickly climbed the ratings, becoming a staple of 1960s television. Linda's performance earned her praise from critics and fans alike, marking her as a rising star with a bright future ahead. Playing Audra wasn't just a job for Linda, it was a reflection of who she was at her core. Like her character, she possessed a quiet determination, a resilience that allowed her to push through the doubts and fears that had plagued her younger years. That connection resonated with audiences, forging a bond that went beyond the screen. People saw in Audra the same qualities they began to see in Linda herself, a woman unafraid to stand her ground, to carve her own path in a world dominated by larger-than-life figures. The success of The Big Valley didn't just boost her career, it gave her the confidence to dream bigger, to reach for roles that would challenge her and showcase her talents on an even grander scale. The Big Valley was more than a breakthrough, it was a launchpad. It propelled Linda from the ranks of promising newcomers into the spotlight, setting the stage for the role that would define her career. As the series wrapped up, she carried with her a newfound sense of purpose and a reputation as an actress who could hold her own against the best in the business. The world of television was changing, and Linda was ready to change with it. Her time as Audra Barkley had been a proving ground, a place where she honed her craft and built the foundation for what was to come. And what was to come would be nothing short of spectacular, a role that would cement her as a household name and a cultural icon. In 1981, the television landscape shifted forever with the debut of Dynasty, a show that would take the world by storm and introduce Linda Evans as Crystal Carrington. From the very first episode, it was clear that this was no ordinary soap opera. Dynasty was a spectacle of wealth, power, and betrayal, a glittering saga of the Carrington family and their oil empire. At its heart was Linda, stepping into the role of Crystal with a presence that commanded attention. She was the epitome of elegance, her every move dripping with sophistication, yet beneath the polished exterior lay a woman fierce and unyielding, ready to fight for what she believed in. Crystal Carrington wasn't just a character, she was a force. As the wife of oil tycoon Blake Carrington, she navigated a world of high stakes and higher drama, facing off against rivals, family secrets, and her own complicated heart. Linda brought her to life with a performance that was both captivating and complex, evolving Crystal from a devoted spouse into a savvy businesswoman who could hold her own in any boardroom or ballroom. It was a role that broke new ground for women on television, showing that they could be glamorous and powerful, vulnerable and strong, all at once. Viewers were hooked, tuning in by the millions to see what Crystal, and Linda, would do next. Dynasty didn't just capture audiences, it defined an era. The show's extravagant storylines, filled with love affairs, corporate intrigue, and jaw-dropping plot twists, turned it into a cultural juggernaut. Linda's performance earned her a Golden Globe Award and multiple Emmy nominations, accolades that spoke to her undeniable talent. But it wasn't just her acting that kept people talking. Her chemistry with co-stars like John Forsythe, who played Blake, and Joan Collins, who brought the infamous Alexis Carrington to life, was electric. Their scenes crackled with tension and emotion, drawing viewers into the tangled web of the Carrington family's lives. Beyond the screen, Linda became a phenomenon in her own right. Her wardrobe on Dynasty, those shoulder-padded power suits and shimmering gowns, set fashion trends that swept the 1980s. Fans clamored to emulate her style, turning her into a bona fide icon. Yet, with that fame came a price. The spotlight that once felt warm and inviting grew harsh and unrelenting, casting shadows over her personal life. The media dissected her every move, and the pressure to maintain the image of Crystal Carrington began to weigh heavily on her. For every cheer of adoration, there was a whisper of criticism, a reminder that stardom was a double-edged sword. As Dynasty soared to new heights, Linda faced challenges that tested her like never before. Her personal life, once a quiet refuge, became fodder for tabloids, and the lines between her real self and her character blurred. Yet through it all, she held her head high, channeling the same strength that made Crystal Carrington a beloved figure. By the time the show aired its final episode in 1989, Linda had left an indelible mark on television history. She wasn't just a star, she was a symbol, a woman who embodied resilience and grace under pressure. And though her time on Dynasty had ended, her story was far from over. Behind the glamour of Dynasty, Linda's personal life was a storm of its own. Her marriage to actor John Derek had started as a fairy tale, a whirlwind romance that promised happily ever after. But fairy tales don't always last, and soon the cracks began to show. John's controlling nature turned their relationship into a battleground, chipping away at Linda's sense of self. He demanded perfection, not just in their marriage but in her career, leaving her questioning her worth at every turn. The woman who dazzled millions on screen felt trapped off it, her confidence eroding under the weight of his expectations. The pressures of fame only made things worse. As Dynasty climbed the charts, Linda's life became a public spectacle, her every struggle magnified for the world to see. She wanted to be strong, to live up to the image of Crystal Carrington, but inside, she was crumbling. Friends tried to support her, offering words of comfort and shoulders to lean on, but often it felt like no one could truly understand the depth of her pain. The isolation was suffocating, a stark contrast to the glittering world she inhabited on television. Then came the turning point. In a moment of raw courage, Linda decided she'd had enough. She walked away from John Derek, leaving behind the toxicity that had held her captive for too long. It wasn't easy, divorce in the public eye never is, but it was necessary. That decision marked the beginning of her rebirth, a chance to rediscover who she was beyond the roles she played, both on screen and in her marriage. Slowly, she began to rebuild, piecing together the fragments of her identity with a strength she didn't know she had. The lessons she learned in those dark days became her armor. Linda embraced self-love, finding power in her independence and resilience in her scars. Her career flourished anew, her performances carrying a depth that only comes from lived experience. She became more than an actress, she became an inspiration, a woman who turned pain into purpose and showed the world that no one could define her but herself. The struggles didn't disappear overnight, but they shaped her into someone stronger, someone who could face anything Hollywood threw her way. And as she rose from the ashes of her past, she proved that the fight for oneself is the most important battle of all. After the chaos of her marriage, Linda didn't just survive, she thrived. With every step away from her past, she uncovered parts of herself she'd long forgotten. Acting, once a refuge, became a passion reignited, and she returned to it with a fire that couldn't be extinguished. In the 1990s, she made a triumphant return to Dynasty for a reunion special, stepping back into Crystal Carrington's shoes with a grace and power that stunned audiences. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement, a declaration that she could rise above anything life threw at her. This second act wasn't about reclaiming fame, it was about reclaiming herself. Linda poured her heart into her work, bringing a new depth to her roles that reflected her journey. She also took on a new role off-screen, mentoring young actresses who looked to her for guidance. She shared her story, her struggles, and her triumphs, offering them the wisdom she'd gained through years of trial and error. Hollywood's harsh edges softened in her presence, her authenticity breaking through the industry's polished veneer. Linda Evans became a beacon, proof that resilience could turn even the darkest chapters into something beautiful. In 2014, life threw Linda another curveball. What started as minor health issues spiraled into a battle that tested her like never before. Major complications forced her to face her own mortality, plunging her into a depression that dimmed the light she'd worked so hard to reclaim. The woman who'd once shone so brightly on screen now wrestled with shadows, her spirit battered by pain and fear. But Linda wasn't one to give up. She sought help, turning to therapy and holistic healing to pull herself back from the brink. With every small victory, she rebuilt her strength, her determination a quiet roar against the odds. That fight wasn't just about survival, it was about rediscovery. Linda emerged from her health struggles with a renewed sense of purpose, her spirit tempered by the fire she'd walked through. She returned to the public eye not as a victim, but as a warrior, her story a testament to the power of endurance. Her battles inspired others, showing that even in our darkest moments, there's a way forward. Linda's journey became a lifeline, a reminder that resilience isn't just about standing tall, it's about rising again and again, no matter how many times you fall. Linda Evans is more than a name on a marquee. She's a legacy, a tapestry of talent, tenacity, and truth. Fans don't just remember her for Crystal Carrington's glamour, they remember her for the woman who faced life's storms and came out stronger. She became a voice for mental health, speaking openly about her depression and offering hope to those who felt alone. Her vulnerability wasn't a weakness, it was a strength, a bridge that connected her to countless others. Her story is a roadmap for growth, a guide for turning pain into power. Linda's life shows us that legacy isn't just about what you achieve, it's about what you overcome and who you lift up along the way. As she continues to share her journey, her influence endures, a quiet call to embrace our own struggles and find strength in our scars. Linda Evans isn't just a star, she's a survivor, a symbol, and a reminder that the truest victories are the ones we fight for within ourselves.